All right, welcome to Resilient Voices and Beyond. I'm so excited to have another episode here for you guys. This is my 16th episode. I started this January 7th. It's time to put some action behind my own dream. And I was really kind of nervous, but it's been really going really well. So I'm excited to have my guest that I have today. Just a very brilliant young lady and expert in her own right and in her own field. Without further ado, I'm going to have her introduce herself and her tell you a little bit about everything.
Oh, Michael, I love that introduction. I might need to take you with me on my other calls just so that, brilliant in her own field, expert. I love it. I love it. So, hey, everyone, my name is Erica Myers. I am the founder and CEO of Fosterpreneur. And what we do at Fosterpreneur, we help foster care alumni or just individuals who have been impacted by the foster care system. We inspire and equip them so that they can be entrepreneurs. So if a young person comes to us with an idea, or someone who is a little further along the path, like already has their business idea established and wants to go to the next level, or just somebody who comes to us saying, I want to be my own boss. I don't know what that looks like. I'm curious. We're here to help. So love what we do. Really excited. That's what I do outside of my 9 to 5, but we'll keep it there. We'll keep it there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And just as a testament, I'm even hitting her up for, advice and so forth as I embarked on this journey with my podcast and building my own foundation. So, you guys will get to see as I continue to grow, I hope I can get some knowledge and utilize her, expertise in my own experience and so forth and what I'm trying to do here for you guys. Thank you for that. Without further ado, you guys know I say this all the time. I like to dive deep, and what I mean by that is kind of getting the gist of who you are and how you got to the point where you are now, and how did this choose you,
I really like that question. How did this choose me? So when I think back on my story, there's so many layers to my story, to how I got to this point today. But what I always like to start off with is I am somebody who doesn't have a lived experience in foster care. Like, I'm someone who has an advocate. Even when I think back to growing up as a little girl, I knew that foster care was a thing, but I wasn't exposed to it. So I didn't have any family members that fostered. Because of my educational situation and going to private schools, I wasn't in an environment where I was around other children who experienced foster care. Just something that I knew existed, but didn't know directly what that meant. One thing I'm really grateful for is I had parents that really allowed me to go into my strengths. Since I was, probably 5th, 6th grade, I knew I wanted to do something mental health related. I thought I was going to be a child psychologist for the longest time. And the reason why I bring that up as part of it is because I knew I wanted to do something that was going to relate with people and really help them come up with solutions to their problems. Didn't think it would end up where I am today, but I do think that's important because I did recognize that when I was 10, 11 years old, and my parents supported that. And I feel really fortunate to have that. And the other thing they supported me exploring. And this ties to how the work chose me. So fast forward, I graduated from college. I went to Spelman College. Shout out to Spelman. Had an amazing experience at Spelman. Spelman played such a pivotal part of who I am today. Just the environment about being surrounded with other young women who looked like me, having mostly professors that looked like me and poured into me and taught me even more pride instilled in more pride in myself than I even had before, which is crucial to where I am and how my path evolved. And I studied psychology because I mentioned I wanted to go into child psychology. I wanted to be a child psychologist for a while. And I found this field called community psychology, actually my last semester at Spelman. And what I loved about community psychology was it wasn't just looking at, as a child psychologist, as a therapist, at least at that time in the earlier 2000s, it was you have a deficit, you have a problem, and my job is to help you solve that problem, but not looking at like just the world that we live in. Systems impact so much. So how is your family impacting how you like your lived experience, who you are? How's your school community? How's, religious institutions and other communities like, and then let's think about it on a whole big macro lens. How is racism impacting you? How are certain issues tied to class and economic well-being, all of those things impacting you? So I really like that philosophy because it was like we're complex beings, and whether you come from a privileged background or not, you're impacted by the systems that you are involved in, regardless of whether you know it or not. So I really love that. And that's something that really led me to this work. And the reason why I say that is because I worked in the school after I graduated from college. I worked at a charter school in Washington, D.C., which gave me a lot of insight as well. And then back to that adventure that my parents like encouraged me to. I said back when I was in high school that I was going to live in Miami for a few years. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I would do in Miami, but just the whole thought of palm trees, beautiful weather, like attractive people. I was in my goal. I was so in. So, and just to give you insight, I had gone to University of Miami as a 13-year-old to visit a cousin. And that was the first time I'd ever seen any fine man in my life. And I was like, I have to be here. So fast forward almost 10 years later, I'm looking at graduate school programs and thinking about that community psychology lens. Long and behold, University of Miami has a program in community psychology. And I'm like, oh, I said I was going to live in Miami, so this is going to be my thing. So applied last minute at that. Like I should have applied sooner and didn't hear back from a while. And my mom was like, you still think you're going to Miami? Like it's June and you haven't got an acceptance letter and school starts in August. I'm like, I'm going. It's taken care of. And I know she thought it was crazy. And I found out about 6 weeks before school started that I got accepted into the program. So I left the DC area and moved to Miami. Luckily, I had an aunt that lived there, so I didn't have to find housing right away. So it just like everything aligned. It was last minute, but everything aligned for me. And I had taken an evaluation course at University of Miami. And in this course, one of the organizations that was a case study was an organization that I love deeply called Casa Valentina. Casa Valentina provides subsidized housing and life skills training and development for young people who've aged out the foster care system. So young moms, young men, young women doing incredible work. I went up to the program director and was like, if you have an internship available, I'd love to work with you. And less than 2 months later, she emailed me and was like, we would love for you to work with us. And I was 24. Yes, I was 24 at the time. And like, that was the first time that I had felt like a strong sense of purpose. Like doing that work at Casa Valentina, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. Like, this is bigger than me. That's when I really felt like I was chosen to do this work. So had learned so much from the young people that lived there, was exposed to so much about Miami, so much about the child welfare system, so much about what it is like. I still carry those stories today with me from particularly the young mothers and the young women that I worked with. Like, and this has been like 11 and a half years since then. Long story short, ended up working with another organization in Miami that worked with young people dealing with who were impacted by foster care, Educate Tomorrow. Love that work too. And then I was like, I do something on a bigger level. Like I was thinking about policy because of my background, thinking that I had to go back to DC because that's where my family, my immediate family was, and this was my way to do it. And at that time it was 2014. And one of my best friends from Spelman was like, Erica, why don't you apply to the White House internship? And I'm like, yes, let me do this. Now, Michael, I will tell you, being really honest, I was feeling myself a little too much. I'll tell you why, because when I made up my mind to do something, I did it. Now, the reason why I say I was feeling myself a little too much is because I made it to the final round and I got to the background check portion. And I was like, oh, I got this. I'm good. I'm like, this is in the bag. Resign from my job. found a subletter for my apartment. After I did all of that, it wasn't even a week. It was less than a week, maybe 2 to 3 days later. I don't remember the timeline now. I got an email saying I was waitlisted. And I'm like, okay, well, I already started giving my life. This is going to work out because how dare they not accept me? That's why I said I was feeling myself a little too much. And then came back up here, supposed to start September, got a call like 2 days before they were supposed to start, me still praying, hoping it's going to work out, got another interview. And then a month later found out that I wasn't accepted. And I was devastated because I put everything on the line. I was like, I know I'm supposed to be doing this work on a transformative level with young people who have been in foster care because I heard their stories and I know that policy is the way to do this. That's what I thought at the time. But let me tell you something, Michael. Some of our biggest rejections set us up for the greatest moments of our life. Because if I had gotten that opportunity to work in the White House, I would have been on a completely different trajectory. And getting that rejection humbled me and allowed me to be more open, because I remember talking to a really great friend, crying on the phone, saying like, I'm supposed to do this work. Like, I don't understand why this didn't work out. Then it was almost like it was a divine intervention. And I had the thought, I was like, wait, what if we combine entrepreneurship and help foster care alumni become entrepreneurs? And that wouldn't have happened if I had gone the route of becoming a policymaker to make change, and not to say that I couldn't do transformative work in that way, because policy is important. So I am not minimizing that at all. But if it weren't for the fact that that did not work out, Fosterpreneur wouldn't exist. And I think about the impact that we have had thus far. Like, there are so many people, I really believe this, when you operate in your purpose and in your gift, there are so many people that are tied to that, people that you may know, people that you may never meet, whose lives that you may impact. So as a result of that, got to work. So this is the end of 2014. I'm rebuilding my life, getting in research mode, seeing what's out there. Couldn't find anything that was this niche in this way. So really spent a good year kind of like in research mode, even looked up like graduate studies to see if there was any research on this work. And I couldn't find anything at the time, but I found some instrumental foster care alumni doing great work. So one of the first people when I looked up foster care alums doing work that came up was Shalita O'Neill. And Shalita O'Neill is the CEO of the Foster and Change Network's done so much incredible work for foster care alumni. And she was based in just right outside of DC, but had roots in Baltimore. And I remember looking her up on the internet being like, one day I'm gonna meet her. Like, she's doing some really great work. And long and behold, about 2.5 years later, I met her. So what I ended up doing, and Michael, tell me if I'm being a little too long-winded.
No, you are great. You are great.
Okay, so what I ended up doing was my partner at the time was like, Erica, like, you need to like network in Baltimore and see what, there's some people that may be able to help you in this way. So as a result, he introduced me to an incredible businessman in Baltimore area. His name is Will Holmes. He has a business called Will Holmes Consulting, done really incredible work. Went to one of Will's events and shared that I shared my friend's name. I shared like, hey, he suggested I talk to you. And then Will connected me with the 2 team members that I still work with today. So literally this was 2015. I prepared like pitch meetings because I didn't know these individuals, and Will had prepped me like, hey, these are some people, like, it sounds like you're really passionate about this. Like, I'm willing to introduce you to them. And they bought into the vision from the beginning, which was really great and gave me poignant feedback because things evolved and shifted since then. And then I had opportunity to do a fellowship called Starting Block, international fellowship that connects other like change makers with different individuals from, like, it's global in the sense of there were people from all over the world had participated, and it was in DC. And at that fellowship, I was in a group, and one of my group members, Ari, didn't even know to the end she had a history in foster care, and she bought into the vision too, and served on our board for quite some time. So literally it just came from me just taking the time being willing to have conversations, get a little bit out of my comfort zone, do research. And then, gosh, there's so many details here. We had our first cohort in collaboration with the Greater Baltimore Urban League in 2017. And in that, we had one student. And let me tell you, Michael, at first, I felt like it was something I was embarrassed and ashamed about, because I'm like, oh, we have this really cool thing that like, I know the people wanted, did focus group with foster care alums in Miami that I had relationships with. And they're like, yes, we love this and we want to do this. But in Baltimore, I only had one student at the time. And she was amazing. And like, I love Danielle so much. It taught me so much through that process. And then honestly, just fast forward, kind of life stuff happening, but just working through having another fellowship through the Warnock Foundation, and then trying different things, failing in the process. And honestly, the pandemic has been one of the biggest blessings to us, honestly. The reason why I say that is because it forced us to move virtual. And as a result, since fall of 2020, our fourth virtual cohort starts on Monday. And we have had young people apply from now every region of the country. So it's been such rewarding work, being able to build a team and just having people who support the mission, but also knowing where I go. Like I say in my lane, I don't do the actual entrepreneurship portion of it. Like that's just not my area of expertise. But I'm the visionary. I'm the strategic person. I'm the person that's connecting with our young people. Like I'm program director, but also like CEO duties at the same time. So it's been just so rewarding to see our students grow, and just even hearing them talk about their experience in Fosterpreneur. It's been like, this is why we do what we do. This is why we do what we do.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Like, you gave us a lot of different nuggets and a lot of different breadcrumbs there. And and it's wonderful because in doing this podcast and creating this, I envision a place to showcase all resilient voices, but also a special highlight on the child welfare system and the people surrounding that, and experience and that expertise. And it's important that we highlight people like yourself. Had no experience. The universe said, "This is what you're gonna be doing. This is what I'm planting in your life," and you accepted that calling, and have been doing it. And through failures, you found success, and that's very important because with you having worked with foster youth, I'm pretty sure we get into that mode where it's like, dang, this didn't work out. Oh, I guess it wasn't meant to be. You gotta go figure out something else. We don't like rejection. We don't like failure. But in life, I had to learn that sometimes you got to suck up the pride and ask for help. You can't do it by yourself. You gonna fail not just one time, but over 100 times, and then find some success. You're gonna be rejected. All these different things, and you have to be okay with that, because in those rejections, in those failures, there's lessons, and also that probably ain't where you need to be. Yeah.
Michael, listen, listen. Yes, like there's so much. And the thing that I'm grateful for too is like, this vision was given to me when it was like my rock bottom, because I packed up everything in Miami and had no plan B, like to go to an opportunity that wasn't even guaranteed. And as a result of that, like, it's not like I had capital to do this. Like, I was barely paying my bills at that time. Like, I had to ask for help to pay my bills. Like, I had to humble myself in so many ways. But like, as a result of starting from having very limited resources at the time, that's allowed us to be like, it's allowed you to tap into creativity in a different way. And really, like, I'm learning that just because you have money to throw at a situation doesn't mean you solve your problem, right?
Mhm.
So even if day one, able to afford to get the 501c3 status, able to afford to pay people, do all of that stuff, if we didn't have a strong foundation, it doesn't matter the amount of money that we would have. Now, mind you, it would make some things okay, right? But not saying it wouldn't like solve some problems, because I'm not on that camp, right? But just in the sense of, I wouldn't have been ready to receive that and be the leader that Fosterpreneur needs. So there's so like I'm grateful for every no that we've gotten. Like, I'm grateful for having people who believed in the vision. I'm grateful for those who decided not to, because that's information, that's valuable information too, right? So, and the thing that I love about the work that we do is that we meet our young people where they are. So what I mean by that, for example, is this may sound a little crazy, but for our 8-week process, we don't have an attendance policy. And that's probably like, what? We don't, because we allow you to show up how you are. We ask that you communicate with us, but like understanding who we're serving and that life is unpredictable. I might try to contact you with one number and that number might be changed. Or you may ghost me for like 4 months and then pop back up kind of like nothing happened. And that's okay, because that's what we created. And just allowing whoever you are to show up in those ways. Like, one of the things that I am mindful of is when I don't want to be like, if you go on our social media, yes, there's a lot of video, not a lot, but there's enough videos of me, but moving away from that to have more of our students' voices, because I don't want to be the face of Fosterpreneur in a way that's not representative of foster care alumni. I don't want anybody to see a video and think they have to be like me. No, you don't have to be like me. I want you to be more like you, because the world needs what you have to offer. And just even thinking about, like, I see so many strengths with young people who have been in foster care, from having to navigate multiple systems, having to be creative, having to be scrappy. Those are all things you need to be successful in business. Like, there's so many parallels there to me. And that's why, like, talking about this gets me so excited. And that's why I need to stop for a second, because I feel like I am monopolizing this conversation. So
No, you are perfectly fine. I love it. And that's the purpose. I want to know your journey, but also, like, what you're doing, and it's great to hear that you're very passionate about what you're doing. And your passion is transferring into your students. One thing I want to say is you picked on, helping these young people build into their own brand, build into themselves, invest in themselves, learning how to take those steps and what they do, what they want to do in their own businesses and so forth. And I just did an interview with a young woman. Her name was Sonia, and she talked about prevention in a way of creating equity, and so forth. And it's great what you're doing, because you're doing this nationally, with youth and so forth, since COVID and everything. So it's not just designated in one spot. You're creating equity for those foster care alumni by, teaching them how to be their own entrepreneurs, teaching them different assets that they may need for their business and so forth, and just being that guiding light, and support, and that person to believe in them, and although we're just talking about like the entrepreneur part and so forth, I know there's more things that your program does. On a deeper level, from a foster care alumni standpoint, I know that does so much to affect that individual's life, because by you investing time in a space for them, and believing in them and whatever ambition that they have, you are creating like, okay, I can actually do this. Somebody is validating what I thought was just a dream. Now something that was just a dream is something that I can physically put forth in front of me. and not only that, I don't have to be things that has been generationally tearing away at my family. I can be a new generation. I can leave a legacy for my kids and so forth. I can step out of these systems and be part of my own individual life, and that way make make society better, because now we're seeing less and less people be caught up between those systems, because they have found a way to invest in their mindset, invest in themselves through someone just believing in them. So it's very powerful what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. And one of the things that, that grounds me in this is we're technically disrupting systems. And the reason why I say disrupting systems is because if we help change someone's economic situation, especially someone who has been in thinking about who we're serving, that means families stay together. That means basic needs are being met. That means there's abundance that is within reach. That means that as a result of the family being taken care of and not having to be subject to going to the system again, by creating your own means of doing that, that's disrupting the systems. Like, there's so much talk about how we need to disrupt the system, completely blow up the system. And what I acknowledge is like, this is where we are right now. But if we have the skills, if we can help you acquire more of the skills to work within the system and change your family trajectory, that is a win. Because I can think of one of our alums who is one of the most ambitious people I've ever met in my life. She's fine with me sharing this because we've talked about it before, but Ashley has written her books on her cell phone before she was able to get a computer. What she's been able to do since I met her, and like how she's absorbed so much of the things that William, who is our who teaches our entrepreneurship, facilitates our entrepreneurship curriculum and such, like she's taken it and run with it. She was not gainfully employed when we met. Now she is gainfully employed, has 3 young children that she is taking care of. She also she actually got accepted into Morgan State. Morgan State is one of the HBCUs in Baltimore. So she could go back to school. And most recently, she was talking to us about how she wants to venture into home ownership and what that looks like for her family. That is not a conversation we would have had at the end of 2019 when we met.
That is amazing.
And just absorbing all of the resources and like taking and running with things and learning from it, getting micro lending to help expand our business. Like, that's an example of what the power of entrepreneurship can do, and what we've created, and allowing our students to show up as they are. So one of the things I know you were asking me about, like beyond the entrepreneurship part. So my background is in youth development, and I've done a lot of workforce development. And most recently, right now, I work for an incredible organization where I do fundraising and stewardship with deep pocket partners. I'll put it that way. And one of the things that I've done because of my work experience, because Fosterpreneur is not full-time and we have not been able to do Fosterpreneur full-time, and that's fine up until this point, is really helping our students work through their employment stuff. So as recently as less than a month ago, one of our students who works full-time, but his photography business is booming, and he's always looking for ways to grow. He reached back to me. He's like, Erica, can you help me prepare for this job interview? I'm masterful at helping students with job readiness and all those things, because I did that. That was part of my job for really over 5 years. So like, that's part of my skill set. So helping through that. We had another student who was part of our first virtual cohort, who I opened up my network to, and he has a background in the music industry to help him gain employment where he's located. So we've had students come to us for, hey, can you give me references to like a therapist? Hey, like, Erica, can you help me with this? Erica, I'm dealing with a relationship issue and I value your perspective on things. Can you talk to me about that? Or just even, I just need someone I trust who has a different perspective to help me navigate through this. Like, hey, should I go to Job Corps? Should I do like, so we provide that mentorship that's beyond like meeting you where you are. And obviously everyone who comes to us, there's some people who are pretty much like, just give me what I need and that's it. And that's okay too. But we're here. We're here. Like I mentioned before, we don't have an attendance policy. And if someone decides this is not the right time for them or this is not the right space, it's fine. Even if you come back 6 months from now, you're like, you know what, I think I'm ready. That's okay too. Like, and just allowing anyone who interacts with us to know that we're okay with whatever you decide. If you decide it's not for you, that doesn't mean you can't come back to us and ask us for help if you recognize that we can help you with something. And I know that's not for anybody. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but we do that. And I'm proud to say that our most recent members of our most recent cohort were like, we need official alumni space. We're willing to facilitate that. And I'm like, great, because I don't have the bandwidth right now to do that. So at the end of January, we had our first alumni check-in where it was like, the theme was, how you really doing? You know, it's real easy to be like, you know, I'm good. But like, if you really need to take a deep dive in a space that you know that other people have had a similar lived experience as you, we're here. So I would say as we think about as a team and evaluating what makes us really, really great at what we do, it's really first and foremost a sense of community that we build. And then entrepreneurship is honestly secondary.
Awesome. It's very beautiful. And you spoke on so many powerful notes there about your program and the experiences and testimonies of prior students and the students going forward. I have a couple more questions. A couple more questions. You kind of touched on this, but I kind of want to get more on the depth side of it. COVID has affected everybody in some way, shape, or form. As a CEO and founder, but not even from that perspective only, as a program that's still working, and developing and shaping itself. How has that been throughout this pandemic? I know in some right it's been great, like you said, but what has been the testament of it all?
The testament of it all, I'm going to say, is the team. So just having a team that, like, when I think about William, when I think about Deidre, and I think about Ari, they have filled in ways that they've filled in my gaps. And they have been so gracious. Like, each of them has had other things that are going on, but just like what's tied us to it. So early in the pandemic, one of the things that started doing a little bit more, because we couldn't do in person and we were thinking about doing another in-person cohort, wasn't sure how we want to get people there, transportation and other barriers, was really seeing like who's talking about how COVID is impacting foster care youth, right? Like, I remember in 2020, NPR did a huge thing about how states are not adequately giving young people who are foster care alumni the funds that they need in order to live, or just even what does it look like to age out in COVID, and how that impacts young people. So there's been so much talk about that, and one thing that I respect, like Sexto Cancel and just all the work that he's been doing with advocacy, like, this needs to be addressed. And what is the government going to do about it? What are advocates going to do about, what is going to be done? Because this is huge. public health issue in a lot of ways. And then one of the things that we realized, and the reason why I say like, you know, COVID being a blessing for us was the fact that now everyone has been forced to Zoom, right? Everyone has been forced to live, you know, adjust to this virtual world. And for us, that's eliminated the need to be able to show up. It's eliminated, like we've had parents in our cohorts. It's eliminated the need of I don't have a babysitter, or like, how are we going to get here? Like, you know, what's the beauty of it is you can just have a cell phone and tune in. I don't necessarily recommend, you know, doing all of Fosterpreneur on a cell phone, but you can do it. You know, you can do it and make it work. So, and what's been great about that is allowing us to meet other young people that wouldn't, you know, outside of the Baltimore area. So, like I mentioned before, we've had applicants from every region of the country now, and that's through the power of social media, and just telling our story and saying, hey, we're here. And I purposely, Michael, we purposely worked from 18 to like early 30s. And the reason why I say that is because from day one, I didn't want to deal with the bureaucracy, the child welfare system. That's just point blank with that, because of all of the loops that you had to go through. But when you're 18, when you're an adolescent, like your brain is still developing, and there's a different level of openness, and it's different from, hey, let me just teach you like entrepreneurship, but like living it in a different way and engaging with it differently. So, you know, I honestly believe, Michael, if it weren't for COVID, well, we had pivot virtually, maybe would have just started pivoting virtually, but it would have been, okay, what space can we get? When can we meet in the evenings? How can we get, and it's a lot to get young people that have very full lives, that have really unpredictable schedules, to be in one place, you know, on top of with so many distractions too. So it's been, I think that I don't know what we would have looked like without COVID at this point. We would have gotten here, but not the way that we've gotten here
Thank
today.
you for that. Thank you. COVID has had so many ups and downs, and I keep hearing the repeated, like, although people say we get the Zoom fatigue and so forth, for programs like yourself, nonprofit and different organizations, they have found a niche and comfortability in reaching these young people through this, because we're in a generation of technology. You know, these young people love this, you know, so it's has really, you know, opened the door to many different things, and trying to figure out what is next and building upon. And that's beautiful that has worked out great. My next question is a question for you, you know, and just your own personal experience. Wow, I was just thinking of this question, and going through, you know, where you were and growing to the woman that you are now and so forth. You know, there has been many different stages, many different tests and trials, struggles, and so forth. You're a CEO and founder, and you also do some other work with your 9 to 5. Pretty sure you have other contributions and things that are part of that life too. With so many different stigmas and labels with mental health, as a Black woman, you know, because it's Black History Month, as a Black woman, and also as a Black woman that is working with a population that we not doing too great with mental health. How do you take care of your own mental health first? And how have that changed throughout the years? And then secondly, how have you seen mental health play a part with working with your students and so forth?
Yeah, a really good question. So I have been a fan of therapy for a long time. And there have been there have been periods in my life when I've had therapists, there have been periods in my life that I haven't. And I know that if your mind's not right, then everything, it doesn't matter. It doesn't like, mental health, physical health, like we should be thinking about mental health as much as we think about physical health. I think that paradigm is shifting. And I'm happy that I feel like we made a lot of progress over the past 10 years in the Black community, particularly about mental health. So like for me, I've actually had the same therapist since fall of 2017. And we do month-to-month check-ins now. And like having that type of, hey, nothing's particularly wrong, but here's how we're staying on top of things. Like it's been great. Like it used to be bi-weekly, but in like probably over the past 2+ years or so, it's just been once a month. So I am a huge fan of that because life is so unpredictable, and you need to make sure, like I have to take care of myself because I cannot pour from an empty cup. So my mental health is important to me, my physical health is important to me. Like I make mostly good choices when it comes to like my eating habits, because I know that if I'm not fueling myself properly, that means I'm not showing up to my work. Like whether that's 9 to 5, whether that's Fosterpreneur, whether that's tutoring that I do as well, whether that is really like me being the great daughter, friend, all of that stuff, cousin, auntie, that type of thing to the people who matter the most. So as a result of the pandemic, Michael, I don't rush anywhere. Like I don't rush anywhere anymore. I am not about rushing. I take my time in the mornings. Like I am very much like, what do I need to do to stay grounded? Because sometimes I forget how many people need me. And I have to make sure that I'm taking care of me to the best ability. Obviously, I'm not perfect. There are days that are great days. There are days that's like not as much, right? So, but I'm a huge fan of mental health. I also have a coach who is really, really instrumental in my life too. So I'm all about how can I continue to grow so that I can be the best me for me, but be me for the other people who are reliant on me, whether that's directly or indirectly too. And I have to say, because I work from home, that does make it easier. If I did have to commute, like I understand that there are certain blessings that I have that like make certain things easier, but yeah, I unapologetically take care of myself.
That's amazing, and just as a reinstatement of that second part of that question, with the different stigmas and label, and you're working with this very special population that we've already seen, like through, like you said, NPR, Six Stars brought to the light, program like Foster Club, NFYI, and so many other national groups and even state level groups that have brought to the light the effect of COVID. Nonetheless, even before COVID, the stigmas and labels surrounded around taking care of your mental health and so forth. And even just dive a little bit deep before I get into that question, we don't realize the damage that has been created to reinstill these stigmas in the foster youth and alumni mindset, and I say the damage because as a person who spent a lot of time in the child welfare system from 11 to age 18, in and out and in different placements, group homes, residential facilities, there's mixed diagnosis, or diagnosing to basically tranquilize you because they don't want to deal with behavioral issues that were brought on from trauma, and so forth. So as youth, those are imprints, those are memories of what mental health was for you. So as you get to adult, you have created these stigmas and these imaginations and so forth that and to one extent are true, that the mental health, that's what it looked like. and we already know culturally the differences and so many different things and so forth. But I think it's important to speak to that. There's a hand that our child welfare system in this nation plays on that plays a part on these stigmas that are here today in this community of foster youth and alumni. And programs like yourself, help address those things, and talk to these people, talk to the students and so forth. But we got a lot of work to do with
Yeah.
that. But I thought it was important that I mentioned that, to break that down, because a lot of people don't understand, it didn't just happen or occur. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I don't want to take medication or nothing. You got somebody that was forced to take 12 or so medications when they was in a group home, then find out when they do get diagnosed, or do a mental health examination for a job, or, just randomly want to do it for themselves, that they never had these diagnoses, or something like that. And it's these experiences that correlate together that makes it bad, and people don't want to go to therapy because their therapy said something wrong to them, all these different
Yeah,
narratives.
and thank you for bringing that back up to light, because I'm a huge fan of the site Therapy for Black Girls, and most of the fosterpreneur or foster care alumni that we've served have identified as being Black. So I think representation is so important. And back to your point about being medicated and, and being told, okay, you have this diagnosis, you have this wrong with you. I can think about conversations that I've had with young women who age out of the system, who were like, yeah, I had to go to therapy for all these years, and like my therapist didn't understand me, or that did nothing for me, and I'm so grateful that there are so many more Black therapists and it's easier to find them than before, but also acknowledging that it's so multifaceted. There's so many layers to it. And even for myself, somebody who has boomer parents, like my mom is definitely more open because she is the grief counselor. My dad, not so much, but it was like, pray about it. It was go to church, like it was those types of messages. Or I think about a conversation I had with a relative that was like, why don't you just talk, if you need help, talk to your parents about that. Like, and this was over 10 years ago now, but just in the sense of, if you seek mental health support, you are legitimately crazy, not like you are psychotic crazy. That's the underlying assumption. One of the things that I'm curious about and that I'm not up to speed on is how many black, particularly Black foster care youth are having who need, everybody needs therapy. I feel like everybody needs therapy, no matter what your background is. But like foster care youth who have access to Black therapists, or just culturally competent therapists who aren't just gonna be like, oh, it'll be okay, take this, and not saying like there's a place for psychiatry. Like there's definitely a place for psychiatry, but what are we doing to make sure that young people, children, teenagers in foster care aren't just being passed along? And it brings up so many other things, like how foster care youth are overrepresented in the prison system. Like research from around 2012, 2013, like it said that 3/4 of incarcerated individuals in the state of California had some type of history in foster care. And I think about what is that saying about mental health, but also what is that saying about how we value as a society young people who were taken out of the care of their caretakers and placed in the system that didn't even cultivate them. And this is what's happening. So there's so many things that are wrong. So many things that are wrong.
Yes. It's so many different facets and so forth. And my apologies if I went on a little tangent, but
no, you're good.
These are conversations we need to have, and what your experience and so forth, I think it's very important to, share that and display that, because, our community has come a long way. And I'm gonna, say this as my last note and get back to my question. Our community as Black African Americans have come a long way, but yet have so far to climb. And we're we're in a nation where most of its systems were initially built to prevent growth in our community. From our police to our jail system to our mental health system, to our child welfare system and so forth. All of our systems have a little hint of racism and disparities in it. Now, how do we move forward as a culture, as a people, with systems that still carry those little hints? That's just a little question I got. It's kind of rhetorical. I want you guys as listeners and so forth, and even yourself, Erica, to just think about that. And that's important. When we think about Black History Month, we think about where we come from. And how far we've came. I posted a picture about Martin Luther King, and it had his quote about freedom and his dream and so forth. And I've said we've came so far, but we still got a lot to go. We're still trying to reach that dream. Believe it or not, we're still trying to reach that dream. And that's not just Black people now. That's Hispanic, Latinos, Mexicans. That's foreign immigrants and so forth. People that are fighting for their lives to survive and so forth. And your program, I believe, I believe, in just reading more up on it and just talking with you is a breaking point for these communities. Because it starts with the young people. It starts with those people that are stepping out into their adulthood at 18, at 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, that are developing that mindset of who they want to be, and start with that age group from 18 to 30, because those are the next people. That's the next people that's going to take over where, me and you are old, and so forth, so we have to enrich, but also we have to realize that there's a lot of generational things that are happening because we fail to enrich those young people. And you're doing that with your program. I have just, a couple things that are more so statements from you, not questions. What advice do you have for our young adults and alumni of CARE, and what advice do you have for those young professionals, in college, getting ready to go take off to that internship, and so forth?
Yeah. One of the advice that I have, there's so many things, but one of the things that comes to mind for young people who are in CARE who are thinking about what do I want to do? What's the next step? Is seek out mentorship. And that may seem like, okay, what does that look like? You don't have to be within reach of your mentor. There are some people who I've studied, whether that's from reading, whether that's been example with reading. One person that I absolutely have learned to love is Rachel Rogers, who wrote We Should All Be Millionaires. And I've heard a few interviews that she's done, and how her premise is, particularly speaking to Black women, that for what we want to do and how to disrupt systems, we need to have the economic power in order to do that. So I may never meet Rachel Rogers, but her content and her material are the things that I'm learning from, I'm studying. And I've had mentors who've been in my life for seasons of my life, who have shaped me forever. So you don't have to, even if you feel dang, I don't know where to turn or where to look. The beauty of social media is that you can find those resources there. you know? So I would say, look to see some people who like think of like, you know, whether that is you want to be a writer, look to see who's out there writing. What have they done? Study their habits, their patterns. And then I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. And you'd be surprised like how open some people are to help you. If you just send a note, like, especially when you're young and you're hungry, hey, I know I don't have maybe much to offer right now. I would love 10 minutes of your time or 15 minutes of your time. There have been people who have found me through social media who literally, like, in fact, you, Michael, like,
Yeah.
who have literally messaged me and we've started or built a relationship. Like, I'm somebody who's like, I think about it from the lens of, if I can help one other person and pour into you and accelerate your process so you don't learn, like you learn from mistakes I made, I'm all for it. Like I have a very like giving spirit in that way. And then for those who are studying internship wise, like I would say really think about how can you leverage your relationships? Like one thing that has been so instrumental for me in my life is the relationship. Like your relationships are your currency. Like your relationships can make up for skills that you lack. I have been so blessed because I have people who have said my name in rooms that I'm not even in and been blessed as a result of it. So I would say really, really take the time to cultivate your relationships. And part of that is being curious and asking questions. And you can start that at any point. Like, and the thing that makes me excited for members of Generation Z is like, you guys have access to certain people. You know, they may not grant you that access, but you can find people a lot easily and reach out, especially if you do it the right way. Now, caution. Don't just be hitting up people, like do that strategically and be thoughtful in your approach. But yeah, I would say really think about how can you leverage your relationships. Like those are your, it used to be told to me, it's about what you know, it's about who you know, but no, that's not valid. It's about who knows you, okay? It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you and who's willing to go to bat for you.
That's so interesting because like I've seen like, you know, the financial opportunity, you know, and so forth, which I'm always finding little small things, you know, like, well, you know, this is gas money. Let me do this and so forth. You know, I reached out to this person about the opportunity and so forth, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Michael, I'm so glad you reached out. Like, I've been following you on social media. I'm about to go look at your podcast." I don't even know this person, but they know me, you know. And it's just so awesome because I get that more often than not. And I'm like, you know, I'm just glad that I'm able, whatever I'm doing it right. That, you know.
You are, Michael. I was immediately drawn to you when you reached out to me. And I know you're active on LinkedIn, which I totally respect. And when you look at LinkedIn analytics, you can see who engages, who's seen your posts, or, you know, like what industries they're in. And you'd be surprised who's been following you or who's noticing you, who may never ever say anything, but they know, you know, so.
Yes, that's amazing. And before I forget, you know, I gotta ask this question because I'm sure some of my listeners want to know after hearing these great things and attributes about your program and you as a person and so forth. What is next for Fosterpreneur?
All right. So what's next for Fosterpreneur? Really great question. Well, one of the things that I'm excited about is we have our 4th virtual cohort, which starts on the 14th of February. And then we'll have our end of year celebration that we call graduation. I should have the date right here, but it's the 2nd Saturday in April. As a result, me being honest, like it's not right in front of me, but I know the timeline for it. One of the things that we're looking to do this summer is having just kind of like satellite programming in the sense of, hey, hearing from our alums, not having a full summer cohort, but that's something that we're doing. I'm super excited because I just recently started working with 2 incredible interns who have been lifesavers for us thus far, and there have been 2 students from Hampton University. So that's been really great to have that that type of support. So we're gonna keep doing our cohort models, at least 2 a year, working on expanding our team, whether it looks like from like the board perspective, continue to look for opportunities, because Fosterpreneur, we're doing this as a labor of love. We do have a few reoccurring donations and gotten some small, when I say small, I mean like $500 here, $500 there type, which is not sustainable for the work that we do, but we do this because we're committed to it. And we don't charge foster care alums to be part of our program. This is what we give. So, but definitely looking to grow and make ourselves more sustainable through different opportunities. So I feel like we are literally just getting started, because I feel so fortunate with being given this opportunity and being tasked to do this, and what we've been able to do with our time, with the resources we have. Like, our impact has been incredible, and we're just getting started.
Awesome. This would be something new. I don't usually do this, but can you give me and the listeners how can they donate? How can they find you to be a part of the program? Like, give me that information. I for the listeners, so they can get to know you a little bit more on the Fosterpreneur side, and also possibly donate to your program and so forth.
I so appreciate that. So if you go to our website, it's fosterpreneur.org, and that's spelled FOST as in Tom, ERPRENEUR.org, and you click our donate button. That'll take you straight to being able to our donation platform. There's options to be monthly reoccurring donors or one-time donors. No amount is too small, literally, to donate. And then also too, you can connect. We just closed our application for the spring about 2 weeks ago, but if you go to our website, I do have an announcement. Like, so even if someone's listening and it's like, but I want to be connected or stay tuned, like if you go to Fosterpreneur/apply now, you can still, if you go to that site and even submit your information, I'll get it and To respond to you. So that's one other way. And then if you want to engage with us on social media, the best way to do that is via IG. And our account, our social media handle is Fosterpreneurs. So Fosterpreneur with an S. And then you can find us and you can see some of the videos from our students, see what they've had to say. We do other features on the site of like other orgs who've done stuff, and prominent foster care alumni in the space too. So that's another way to stay up to date with what we're going on. Also try to post part of our blog stuff on LinkedIn too. So you can find us on LinkedIn as well. And if you want to directly connect with me, you can just find me, Erica Myers too. So and that's via LinkedIn. So Erica, ERICA, last name Myers, MYERS. And if you have the privilege of seeing the video, you'll know that it's me, and you'll see Fosterpreneur founder in my title as well. Definitely happy to connect. And one thing that's a goal of mine is to really be more intentional with connecting more people in the space this year, with the help of the team. So gave you guys plenty of ways to connect. So just definitely find the way that best suits you and your needs, and we're here.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, giving that, because you guys, I believe in what you guys are doing, and we as a people, if it's working and if it needs to be there, we need to support it. And that's how we make it better. That's how we heal. Some of these wounds that have been created. Not put band-aids on it, heal it. And so forth. But this has been Resilient Voices and Beyond. I am so thankful for you being a guest, for you answering my message, and so forth. This has been a journey and this has been a ride. This is episode 16 I'm about to drop. And I started this January 7th, not really knowing what was the plan, what I was going to do, but I'm a person of faith, and I was like, all right, now God, we about to go with it,
Love it. Love it.
and I got right in line, and I was like, I'm not going to get in the way of your will. I'm just going to fall in line and do my part and do the work, because I believe this platform is going to educate, is also going to inform on reforms, advocacy, and so forth, and many different
Speak
other
on it.
assets,
Speak on it.
I want to be able to do that, because it's important, as I continue to grow and as I continue to get into the atmosphere of the national initiatives and so forth. I see how much education is needed around the areas of child welfare and foster care, and not a lot of people are really educated on it, and that's why there's not a lot of help, there's not a lot of resources, there's not a lot of support and so forth being brought to, like, hey, I want to help out and so forth, because people really don't know. We're still dealing with people who think of foster youth as juvenile delinquents, and so forth.
So
you
much
know
better. So like,
so yeah.
wow. But I know it's real. I know it's real.
Yes, yes. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I
Mhm.
hope that I can continue to provide that, and provide the people with the voices, the stories, and the experience and expertise for you guys, and in hopes that it provides education, wisdom, and just added knowledge. But this has been Resilient Voices and Beyond. Please stay safe out there. Not gonna get political, but I say this every time. If you're vaccinated, that's great. If you're thinking about getting vaccinated, do your research and just do it. Please just do it. If you're not, okay, it's your choice, whatever, but please make sure that you're wearing your mask, that you sanitize and washing your hands, taking the necessary precautions, because, COVID may not go nowhere. It may be here for a while in different variants and so forth. What we can do as a people is act as the village that we are and support one another and take care of one another. Because if you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of your family, essentially you're taking care of everybody else in your community, and then we're all taking care of each other. So you guys stay safe out there. Please stay healthy. Have a great night. Have a great evening. Have a great whenever you listen to. And this has been Resilient Voices and Beyond. Thank you.